There comes a time in a man's journey when silence speaks louder than words, and his presence carries more weight than his explanations. For the Sigma male, this stage arrives when he has stripped away everything unnecessary, every doubt, every distraction, and every fear of being misunderstood. It is a moment not marked by noise, but by stillness, not by a display of power, but by the quiet recognition that nothing external can move him. Think about this carefully. An untouchable man is not someone who fights with everyone, nor is he someone who forces others to notice him. Instead, he becomes untouchable when he no longer depends on their validation, their approval, or even their understanding. His life is guided by principles, not popularity. His steps are directed by clarity, not chaos. This doesn't happen overnight. It is the result of years of trial and error, of setbacks that taught him patience, and of loneliness that shaped his resilience. The Sigma does not seek the spotlight, yet when he reaches this stage, the world cannot help but notice his calm indifference. People may gossip, criticize, or even try to provoke him, but none of it sticks. He has built himself into something unshakable. And here's the truth. When a Sigma becomes completely untouchable, it changes not only how others see him, but also how he sees himself. Suddenly he realizes that he doesn't need to chase, he doesn't need to prove, he doesn't even need to explain. His life begins to flow with a natural authority that no title, no amount of wealth, and no external label could ever give. So today, let us walk through what truly happens when a Sigma male reaches this rare stage of being untouchable. But before we begin, if you find value in this kind of reflection, consider subscribing for more calm insights into the Sigma path and the life of high-value men. Now let's explore the 7 things that happen when a Sigma becomes untouchable. In number 1, his detachment becomes his strength. He no longer reacts impulsively to opinions, rejections, or even praise. Instead, he has learned the art of detachment, a discipline that has fascinated philosophers, psychologists, and spiritual teachers for centuries. Detachment is not about indifference or coldness, it is about control. It is the ability to observe life without being tossed around by every passing judgment or fleeting emotion. In psychology, this closely resembles the concept of emotional regulation, where one learns to pause, reflect, and respond thoughtfully rather than react instinctively. Studies in neuroscience show that people who practice mindfulness and self-control activate the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making, rather than the amygdala, which drives impulsive reactions. This neurological shift explains why calm, detached individuals are often seen as composed and unpredictable. Their choices aren't dictated by external pressures, but by internal clarity. Throughout history, such composure has been linked with wisdom. Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius emphasized that true power lies in mastering one's mind, not in controlling others. Similarly, Eastern traditions such as Buddhism teach that detachment protects inner peace by loosening the grip of ego, desire, and fear. When a man embodies this principle, he becomes difficult to manipulate because he does not rise or fall on the basis of flattery, criticism, or rejection. Modern society, with its constant notifications and waves of social validation, makes this detachment rare, and that rarity is what makes it so powerful. An individual who remains calm when others expect anger, silent when others expect defense, or composed when others expect desperation becomes unpredictable. That unpredictability unsettles people who thrive on controlling or provoking reactions. This kind of presence is not built overnight. It emerges from years of trial, error, and conscious self-mastery. Each rejection teaches him resilience, each failure teaches him patience, and each success teaches him humility. Slowly he reaches a point where external noise cannot shake his inner foundation. By detaching, he protects his peace, and in doing so, he gains an aura of mystery that others cannot decode. He is no longer moved by the world, yet the world cannot help but be moved by him. Number 2, respect replaces attention. When a man reaches the stage where people stop viewing him as someone trying to fit in, something remarkable happens. He becomes someone others naturally respect. This shift is subtle but powerful. It doesn't come from forcing authority, demanding recognition, or chasing validation. Instead, it stems from authenticity, quiet confidence, and consistency in how he lives his life. Respect, in its truest form, cannot be begged for. It must be earned through action, character, and presence. When others sense that he is no longer competing for their approval, they begin to see him as independent, grounded, and secure within himself. That alone commands admiration. Psychologists often note that respect is deeply tied to what they call status signals. Not material possessions or loud displays of power, but traits like emotional control, reliability, and decisiveness. People are drawn to those who exude inner stability because in a world filled with uncertainty, such qualities act like an anchor. History also reflects this truth. Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius emphasized that a person's strength lies not in forcing others to follow, but in mastering one's own emotions and actions. The same principle applies today. The more a man governs himself, the less others can dismiss him, and the more they instinctively value his presence. Think about everyday life. A man who constantly tries to prove himself at work or in social circles often ends up overlooked or even disrespected. But the one who stays calm, delivers results without boasting, and doesn't chase attention, he stands out. People begin to trust his word, respect his boundaries, and even seek his advice. This happens because respect is not about being the loudest in the room, but about being the one who doesn't need the room to define him. Ultimately, when respect flows naturally, it transforms relationships. He no longer has to fight for a seat at the table because people invite him to it. Not out of pity or politeness, but out of genuine recognition of his worth. That is the quiet power of becoming someone who doesn't need to fit in because he already belongs to himself. And number 3, his energy cannot be drained. Drama, conflict, and manipulation lose their power the moment a man refuses to feed them with his emotions. This is one of the quiet strengths of the Sigma male. He does not win by shouting louder, nor by proving himself in endless battles of ego. Instead, his strength comes from restraint. By choosing not to react impulsively, he denies manipulators the energy they crave. Psychologists describe this as emotional regulation, the ability to manage one's emotional responses instead of being ruled by them. Studies have shown that people with strong emotional regulation are less likely to be manipulated in social and professional settings because manipulators thrive on predictability and reactivity. When those elements are absent, the trap loses its effectiveness. To understand this better, think about how drama operates. It is a cycle that feeds on attention. Someone provokes, another reacts, and the cycle intensifies. But when a person no longer reacts, when they meet provocation with calm indifference, the entire structure collapses. This is why some of the most powerful figures in history, from Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius to leaders like Nelson Mandela, practiced detachment. They knew that true power lies not in controlling others, but in controlling oneself. For the Sigma male, this mastery of detachment is not born overnight. It is the result of experience, failed relationships, betrayals, and countless lessons learned in silence. He has faced manipulation before, but instead of breaking, he studied it. He came to realize that conflict only continues when he gives it space in his mind. By withdrawing that energy, he does not just walk away from drama, he becomes immune to it. This is what makes him unexploitable. People may try to guilt him, shame him, or pull him into games of control, but he no longer takes the bait. This is not coldness, it is clarity. Emotional intelligence experts often emphasize the value of detached involvement, being present and aware without being entangled. It is a skill many strive for, but few achieve. The Sigma embodies it almost effortlessly. He can listen without absorbing, observe without judging, and walk away without resentment. This rare balance grants him freedom. While others remain trapped in webs of manipulation, the Sigma quietly builds his life on his own terms. In the end, his power lies not in confrontation, but in absence. The absence of emotional fuel that drama needs to survive. Without it, conflict burns itself out. And what remains is peace, clarity, and the kind of strength that cannot be touched. Number 4, women approach him differently. For women, his indifference becomes magnetic because it speaks a language deeper than charm or surface-level attraction. In psychology, this is often linked to the concept of emotional self-regulation, the ability to stay calm, composed, and unaffected by external noise. Studies in behavioral science suggest that people, especially women in social dynamics, are drawn to individuals who display consistency under pressure. It signals strength, stability, and leadership, qualities that historically and biologically have been associated with security and survival. This is not about arrogance or playing games. It is about a man's refusal to let his sense of worth depend on anyone else's approval. Women often find this indifference intriguing because it defies the usual patterns of interaction. Many men chase, flatter, or seek validation, but the Sigma male does not. His silence is not coldness, it is control. This makes him stand out because he seems to be living from a center of purpose rather than a hunger for attention. Sociologists note that humans are wired to value what seems scarce, and indifference in a world saturated with noise and overexposure feels like scarcity itself. In relationships, women sometimes interpret this self-control as mystery, and mystery has always been alluring. There's also a biological angle. Research in evolutionary psychology suggests that confidence without neediness is a trait linked to dominance and competence. When a man demonstrates that he is unaffected by drama, he communicates unconsciously that he can handle life's challenges without crumbling. For women, this can stir both curiosity and respect because it points to a deeper foundation of stability. In everyday life, this might look like a man who doesn't rush to prove himself, doesn't argue endlessly, and doesn't rise to every provocation. Instead, he observes, thinks, and acts with precision. That quiet discipline is more compelling than any exaggerated display of power, yet his indifference is not about ignoring others. It is about valuing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and principles over popularity. This detachment allows him to move with freedom while others remain bound by the need to be liked. For women, that level of self-possession is both challenging and fascinating. It invites them to wonder what lies beneath, to lean in closer, and to try to uncover what cannot be easily seen. In the end, his indifference is not a wall that pushes people away, but a force that pulls them in because it reflects mastery over himself, and that, more than anything, is irresistible. Number 5, authority without words. In groups, the Sigma male's silence is not emptiness, it is authority. He doesn't raise his voice, nor does he compete for dominance, yet people instinctively defer to his presence. This phenomenon is more than just personality. It's rooted in psychology and history. Studies in social dynamics show that human beings are highly sensitive to nonverbal cues. A calm, composed individual who listens more than he speaks often commands greater respect than someone who constantly asserts themselves. This is because silence creates space. Space for others to project meaning, to wonder, and to sense depth. Throughout history, leaders known for their restraint have carried this same aura. Take George Washington, for instance, who was famously soft-spoken, yet his mere presence commanded the attention of soldiers and politicians alike. In many cultures, wisdom has been linked not to the loudest voice in the room, but to the one who speaks the least. Proverbs 17:28 even notes, "Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues." The Sigma embodies this principle effortlessly. He doesn't seek validation, so his words, when spoken, carry gravity. Educational psychology also sheds light on why people defer to silent figures. Research into leadership perception shows that those who remain composed under pressure are rated as more competent and trustworthy. Silence, in this sense, is not passive. It's active self-control. It signals to others, "I am not shaken, I am not in need of proving myself." That subtle confidence often outweighs aggressive dominance. In fact, modern workplace studies reveal that meetings often shift when a quiet figure finally speaks. The silence before makes the words after more impactful. Entertainment-wise, you can think of this in the way films portray mysterious heroes. Characters like Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name. He speaks little, but when he does, everyone listens. The drama doesn't come from shouting, it comes from the power of restraint. This mirrors real life. People are drawn to mystery, and silence creates that aura of intrigue. So when the Sigma male sits in a group, he doesn't have to prove his worth. His silence is not weakness, but discipline. He's not competing for attention, yet ironically, attention is drawn to him. His presence communicates that he is self-sufficient, unaffected by the noise around him, and firmly rooted in his own sense of identity. That is why others defer, not to his words, but to the quiet strength he embodies. Number 6. Freedom from social games. He is free from peer pressure, fake friendships, and social hierarchies. He chooses authenticity over popularity. This freedom is not accidental. It is the result of a conscious decision to live life on his own terms rather than bending to the invisible chains society often places on people. Peer pressure has long been studied in psychology as one of the strongest influences on human behavior. In adolescence, for example, research shows that peer influence can override even parental guidance, shaping decisions on everything from clothing choices to risk-taking behavior. Yet the man who resists this force is one who understands that popularity is fleeting, while integrity is permanent. When someone breaks free from fake friendships, they also escape the trap of conditional acceptance. Many relationships are built on convenience, shared status, or mutual benefit rather than true care. Sociologists call these instrumental ties, where people maintain connections for personal gain. The man who chooses authenticity understands that such ties collapse when circumstances change. Instead, he invests in bonds that are rooted in honesty, loyalty, and shared values, even if that means standing alone for long seasons of life. Social hierarchies present another form of invisible control. From the workplace to social circles, hierarchies dictate who is seen as important and who is overlooked. Yet history is filled with examples of individuals who refuse to play by these rules. Think of philosophers like Diogenes, who rejected societal expectations, or leaders like Nelson Mandela, who resisted unjust systems despite immense pressure. Their strength came not from climbing the ladder, but from stepping away from it altogether. Choosing authenticity over popularity means valuing truth over applause. It is a rejection of conformity in favor of individuality. Studies on authenticity in psychology confirm that people who live authentically, acting in alignment with their core values, report higher levels of life satisfaction, lower stress, and greater resilience. The reason is simple. When you no longer perform for approval, you are no longer drained by the fear of rejection. This way of living is not easy, but it is liberating. It requires courage to stand apart, to walk away from crowds, and to remain grounded in one's convictions, even when misunderstood. But in doing so, a man gains something far more valuable than fleeting popularity. He gains peace, freedom, and an unshakable sense of self. Number 7, his focus creates unstoppable progress. With his mind free of noise, his energy turns towards growth, mastery, and purpose. His life becomes a living example of quiet power. This transformation is not merely poetic, it is supported by both psychology and history. Modern neuroscience shows that when the brain is not consumed by stress or constant external validation, it can enter a state known as flow. In flow, a person experiences heightened focus, improved memory retention, and greater problem-solving ability. Athletes, musicians, and entrepreneurs often describe this state as the moment when time seems to disappear and their performance feels effortless. For the Sigma male, whose strength lies in independence, silence, and detachment, become the soil where his deepest abilities take root. History also gives us countless examples of men who tapped into this principle. Think of Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor who ruled Rome not with loud boasts, but with quiet discipline and reflection. Or consider Nikola Tesla, who often worked in solitude, turning his focused energy into inventions that shaped the modern world. These figures demonstrate that the absence of noise is not emptiness, it is potential waiting to be shaped into mastery. From a psychological perspective, studies in minimalism and mindfulness show that removing distractions increases well-being and productivity. When external approval no longer dictates his actions, the Sigma male redirects his energy inward, seeking mastery of his craft, clarity of thought, and strength of character. Instead of scattering his energy in all directions, he channels it toward growth. His relationships deepen not because he seeks them desperately, but because his presence radiates stability. His work becomes meaningful not because of recognition, but because it reflects his purpose. This shift is entertaining to observe because it flips social expectations on their head. In a world that equates volume with influence, the Sigma demonstrates that silence can be more powerful than noise. He becomes the man who walks into a room without demanding attention, yet all eyes turn toward him. His calmness unsettles those addicted to chaos, and his mastery inspires those who quietly seek greatness themselves. This is the paradox of quiet power. It needs no announcement, yet it leaves an unforgettable mark. When a Sigma male becomes untouchable, it is not about walls or arrogance. It is about clarity. It is about arriving at a place in life where distractions no longer hold power and where outside noise no longer disturbs inner peace. This is not a battle he wins over others, it is a quiet victory within himself. The untouchable Sigma is not feared because he dominates, nor admired because he performs. He is steady because he has chosen to live by principles rather than appearances. He has mastered the art of walking away, the discipline of silence, and the strength of focusing only on what truly matters. For those who cross his path, this energy is undeniable. They may not understand him, but they feel the difference. Some may envy it, others may respect it, and a few may even seek to learn from it. But regardless of how the world reacts, he remains unchanged, because his strength no longer depends on their reactions at all, and that is the essence of becoming untouchable. Not invincible, not perfect, but free. Free to live on your own terms, free to grow without permission, and free to stand firm even when the ground beneath others is shaking. So if you are walking this path, remember, the goal is not to impress the world, but to master yourself. When you do, you too will discover what it means to live untouchable.